We're pleased to bring you the premiere episode of Ethan
and Andy
Go to City.
So this is our first podcast together, maybe our last, depending on how it goes. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Ethan Gusso, longtime Mets fan, and with Andy, we have been going to many games over the years, and we are going to talk about the offseason and what is in store for the Mets this year.
And I'm Andy Merlis, also a longtime Mets fan. Can't remember a time when I wasn't. Indeed, we've been to many games over the years. Not as many postseason games as I would like to have seen, but maybe that will start to change. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking Mets off season now, and as pitchers and catchers are getting ready to report, my favorite time of year.
I know.
So, what are your impressions of how the off season unfolded?
Well, certainly it's gone in two halves. At the very beginning, we lost Nimmo, we lost Diaz, we lost Alonso, and sort of felt like the Mets were on a road to punting this entire season and then getting it together in a year or two. But lately, with the signings, I am cautiously optimistic. I still not sure I would have done exactly the same things that David Stearns did, but I have to admire him. He had a plan and he stuck to it.
I tend to have oddly optimistic faith in the Mets front office, even when they were really unable to get out of their own way. I guess that's part of being a Mets fan, is you're kind of optimistically pessimistic. It's kind of built into the DNA. And I was not opposed to, I loved watching Pete Alonso play. I was not opposed to letting him walk 5 years on a guy who's kind of become a one-dimensional player. I thought Diaz leaving really kind of stung, but I firmly believe in Williams. I think he's a good pitcher. Last year, his stats were not great, but the underlying metrics were pretty good. And he, in the last 5 years, he's kind of been as good as Diaz. Now, having them back to back in the bullpen would have been spectacular, but obviously not to be. Again, I wasn't that upset about the Nimmo trade, because Nimmo, I think, is not aging great, and there was a lot of time left on that contract. My issue and my fear was, where are the replacements, right? And we know that now, but part of me looks at this and says, well, what if we don't have access to what went on behind the scenes, but what if Bichette had taken the Phillies deal, right? What if the price for Robert had gone through the roof, or had maintained what the White Sox had been asking for, and they could have figured they'd unload him at the trading deadline. And the Peralta deal, they gave up a lot. So, but what if they were left holding the bag? That was what scared me. Like, I didn't see what the plan was.
Well, exactly. And it is strange, though, that of the three things at the beginning of the offseason, Nimmo is the one that I totally understood with the length of the contract. Though, of course, right now, the Mets still don't have a left fielder. And it's like, if that one thing had been undone, they would be kind of set.
That's very true. That's really true. And obviously that's what the Kyle Tucker pursuit was about. They offered him an enormous amount of money, and the Dodgers offered him an insane amount of money. You think about 30 years from now, people are going to know and remember the name Aaron Judge, and people are going to remember the name Ohtani and Soto. Kyle Tucker's not, he's a really good player, but he's not of that echelon that he should be making $10 million a year more than Soto. But to your point, the left field situation still is unresolved. They're counting a lot on Carson Bench, and hopefully he steps up.
He may be the solution, which would be terrific, and he may be there for the next 10 years. But
what's plan B?
Exactly.
I mean, I do think Stearns is really good about backfilling these things and knowing what the depth is. But is Taylor then the plan B? Then you've got a potentially weak bat in center, because Robert has not been great the last couple of years, and a weak bat in left. That's a little scary for sure. So yeah, it feels much more complete than it did, say, 4 weeks ago. But there's still some question marks for sure.
No. And I mean, Robert may really, recapture his form. I mean, a lot of it, I think, his problems have been due to injuries. But, you can, and so you both have Robert and you have Taylor, who are both great defensively. But
yes,
neither are the answer offensively, at least.
Well, unless, like you say, he regains his form. I'm cautiously optimistic about that. I mean, the nice thing about Robert is his floor is a spectacular center fielder, right? So at least you've got the defense up the middle, which you want. I'm cautiously optimistic only in that he is now not the man, which he really kind of was on the White Sox, and maybe that was a lot for him to bear, especially on a team, being the man on a team that was just dreadful and god awful. You know, being surrounded by Bichette and being surrounded by Soto in the lineup, and there's and Lindor, of course. I don't want to
Mhm.
forget Lindor. There's a lot of pressure that's not on him that may have been in Chicago.
But defensively, I think the team certainly is much better than it was, at least in the infield. With Semien, whatever his faults are as he gets older, defensively, he's still first rate.
Yes, I think your up the middle defense is tried, true, and solid. I do think Lindor is probably losing a little bit of a step at shortstop, but he's still a fantastic shortstop. Robert and Taylor behind him in center, fantastic. Semyon was a Gold Glover, has not seemed to have lost a step, at second, which
Mhm.
is amazing. And then, you know, defensively, we've seen a little of both sides of Alvarez. He can, has had some trouble in the past blocking pitches, but what he brings with the bat kind of makes up for that. And then Luis Torrens, that arm is just insane.
That was an amazing pickup on Stearns.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was for nothing. It was
yeah.
$100,000, I think, and they picked him up. I'm a little concerned about, and I don't think it's as important. First base defense, we really don't know what Polanco is going to bring. Um, he has been a not very good middle infielder, and I tend to be of the belief that if you can play the infield, you can play first base.
Mhm.
I mean, you may not be, Keith Hernandez out there, but you can play it. And I don't know that we know what we're going to get with Bichette at third, but he was a subpar shortstop.
Yeah.
Range was his issue. Maybe that's not as big an issue at third. It's more reaction at that spot. So we'll see. I mean, I knew that when all those players had exited that Stearns wasn't done, but I didn't know what the heck he was gonna do,
Yeah.
and that was concerning. And I like this team. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And even with first, you have a bunch of choices. I mean, none of them may be ideal, but you have Polanco, who I think probably gets the beginning
Yeah,
reps, but and then you have Beatty and you have Mark Vientos, and one of them might step up and provide average defense.
I think my fear about Vientos and if all goes to plan, I don't think we'll see him a lot at first base, but uh, his strength, if he had any at third, was his arm, and that obviously is not nearly as useful at first. But he's a butcher with the glove. So I'd like to not see him a lot at first
Yeah.
base. Beatty, I think, I mean, he was not a great fielder when he first came up, and he seems to be. He really has worked on that
Mhm.
aspect of his game, and it's really come along. And the way he plays third, I have no doubt he could play first very well if he needed to.
I think that's definitely true.
We should talk about Peralta a little bit. We
Yep.
haven't really talked about the
Well, that was the
left.
other thing that, for all that Stearns was blowing up the core and getting lots of different offensive and defensive players, the major problem last year was the pitching.
Yeah,
I mean,
and innings, but
yeah,
which
yeah,
Peralta does not necessarily
you're right.
solve. But
I know. So, I mean, I think Peralta was a great addition. I mean, it was a lot to give up, but Jeff Williams was blocked, and he wasn't probably going to get a real chance this year. And so I think Peralta's going to be great. And even if Nolan McLean is an ace, I mean, he's still I think can be a very solid number two pitcher. And I would hope Peralta and McLean could give innings. And then we get to things like Clay Holmes was really good, but you understood why he didn't give innings because he was transitioning from
correct.
reliever to starter. But he was really solid, and I don't know. And
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it, right?
yeah,
The problem was, I mean, injuries were a big problem too, though anybody who's banking on healthy rotation throughout the season is not paying attention to what's been
mm,
going on. But I think it really became a problem when Mania couldn't step up to the plate, and he had started the season hurt. And when you had to kind of rely on the guy who was transitioning from the bullpen to be your most dependable starter, which I think he did a great job with, but you're in trouble there because you can't expect him to go 6, 7, 8 innings,
mhm,
or not very often anyway. McLean seems to be an innings guy, which
yeah,
I like. Peralta's not been. What I like about Peralta is that he's not sort of a traditional ace. He's not somebody who, like I said, he doesn't go a lot of innings, and I think that that's still going to be an issue for this team. But he's very consistent and he's very solid, and you know what you kind of know what you're getting with him, and he's very reliable at the top of a rotation. He might not be your traditional number one, but he is certainly a very, very solid number two. And I think that, if Mania can stay healthy and show a little bit of what he showed at the second half of 24, I think I think we're much improved with McLean and with Peralta. It's a great pickup. And yeah, we did give up a lot, but we'll transition to the minor leagues in a little bit, but I think it says a lot about the state of this of the farm uh in on today's Mets squad, which is nice.
I know, and it's a huge difference. I don't think we've been there. I mean, really, even though there've been times when the minor leagues have been really good. I mean, almost since the '80s to have like a farm system this deep.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because
Yeah.
on the way here I was thinking about that. And the last time I felt like, oh, there are kids coming through that we can be excited about was the 80s. And I
Mhm.
remember when the Mets traded for Hernandez, he was very upset to be going from the Cardinals to the lowly Mets, and they convinced him to stay on based on look what's coming up from the farm. It was Darryl Strawberry, it was Dwight Gooden, it was Lenny Dykstra, it was all these guys that were coming up. A little bit later, Kevin Elster was in the
Mhm.
works. I mean, there were um, a lot of exciting bodies coming through, and I agree. I don't. I mean, when Generation K was coming through, that was exciting, but it was all pitching.
Mhm.
And now, I mean, even getting rid of, I guess we're making the transition here, but
Yeah.
even getting rid of Jet Williams, who was my favorite prospect on the Mets because he plays the kind of baseball I love, and Sproat, they if they had kept those two, they would have had six prospects in most people's top 100. They
Mhm.
still have four, which is really amazing, even after trading those two.
Yeah.
So being able to trade from that depth and augment the big league team, that's what a farm system is supposed to do,
Exactly.
right? You can trade from your strength, or you can supplement what you have with the guys coming up. It's very exciting.
And you just don't know. I mean, yes, Jet Williams seemed like he was going to be really good, and Sproat did well in his limited time last year, but you never know. They could be useless after half a season, and then where are you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
absolutely true. And that's the risk of, depending on Benj to step up. And Benj, I mean, well, he was drafted in 24, I think. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not like he's got a lot of professional playing time under his belt. So I think he's an exciting prospect. It might be asking a lot for him to step into that role. We'll see. But again, trading Jet Williams would be the kind of thing you might really worry about, except that a couple steps behind is AJ Ewing,
Hmm.
who seems to be a very similar kind of player, maybe a little less power, but he's an exciting player coming up too. You couldn't trade a Jet Williams so easily or so readily without a guy like Ewing in the wing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be um, a Met fan, and if you're a prospect hugger like I tend to be, I think
Hmm.
that's it's I love what this minor leagues is churning out.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, sometimes I mean, if you're going to make a good deal, the other side has to get somebody decent. I liked Acuna, I think, better than some people did,
Better than
but,
me.
but to get Robert, it was worth it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like you have to give up somebody to get a decent return.
you do, and there's always sort of that fan who's like, he sucks, trade him. It's like, well, who's going to take your $20 million a year guy who sucks? Like
Yeah,
nobody, right?
yeah.
So, and what are you getting back? And the flip side of that is we should go get so and so, but like if you don't have something to trade for it, you're not going to get it. Like you're
Hmm.
not going to trade your problem for somebody's ace. That's not the way it works. And sometimes think that fans forget that there's another team trying to get good here too, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I do think there was a lot to give up for Peralta, and he is quote unquote a rental. But you know what? People give up prospects for rentals at the trading deadline too. At least we have
Hmm.
Peralta for the year,
Yep.
which is better than having him only from August on. So
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, probably if a deal for Scooble was could be had, I probably would give up almost everybody except McLean. But again, that would be a true 1 year rental, and the price for that would just be astronomical.
yeah, the price for him would be astronomical, and I think you have a better chance of extending Peralta.
Hmm.
And if you extend Peralta, nothing stops you from going to get Skubal
Hmm.
as a free agent. But he's a Boris client; he ain't signing an extension, right?
Yeah.
Wherever he ends up, if he stays in Detroit or he gets traded, that's where he's going to be this year what happens next year is a complete crapshoot.
Yep.
Or the Dodgers, because that's what we've all come to expect.
Exactly. I know.
Let's talk a little bit about the Dodgers, not in depth, but
Yeah.
in terms of what they're doing and their, I mean, I look again, bring it back to that Kyle Tucker contract. It looks insane to me. I also wonder what's going to happen down the road. They've got so many deferred contracts. It feels like down the road they're going to be paying hundreds of millions of dollars for players who aren't even on their team anymore.
Right.
Now they're playing within the rules, but it's true that even if you have cheapskate owners, there are not many markets who can compete with that. And and I don't like to vote against the players in collective bargaining agreements and things of that sort, but I do think something has to give somewhere.
I've always been against a salary cap
Yeah.
and been more sympathetic to the players than the owners, because there are definitely owners that just take the money they get and don't spend it on their teams.
They do.
And it's, with Tucker, it's just crazy. And the fact that the Mets offered him almost the same amount. I mean, you got those two teams. I mean, it's like the Yankees still occasionally hand out big contracts, but not as much as they used to.
Right.
It's like, it is just 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 teams that can afford these players.
Right. Right. And I mean, that at least is the one argument that I accept in terms of like the expanded playoffs. Like at least other teams, that are smaller market get the chance to
Right.
get in. And let's also, money doesn't always equal wins. Yes, the Dodgers have back-to-back champions, but the best team in baseball record-wise last year was the Milwaukee Brewers.
Mhm.
So, and they don't have a big payroll at all. So, smart management helps too. But again, that starts to get expensive as well, right? Like a lot of what the Mets have done is not just handing out mega contracts, but also how they have Stearns as one of the smartest guys at the top of, of an organization, and they've really revamped their development team, and that's huge too. So, but that's places that's cheaper than those big contracts, and that's places that a team like the Pirates can invest, a team like the Marlins can invest, and things of that sort. And that's where I think I don't know how you mandate that in a contract, but I'd like to see a floor, whether there's a cap or not. There should be a floor.
I think definitely that's true. And it's like, even though the Blue Jays certainly aren't on the low end of the scale. I mean, they're one of the top 10 teams in spending. I mean, and they came very close to being the Dodgers. I mean, just one
Pitch
play.
away.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like all the money in the world doesn't guarantee anything.
That's correct.
But
I mean, yes, and they're not cheapskates, but the Blue Jays for years. I mean, remember when the Ohtani sweepstakes were going on, and there was, he took a plane to Toronto, and everybody thought. I mean, the Blue Jays and the Giants are two teams that seem to always be trying to lure a top free agent and always seem to be coming short. But I think the Blue Jays coming so close like they did last year, they have an exciting team. I think they're more likely to be a destination at this point. But like, who's signing with the Pittsburgh Pirates? Not a big name, I mean, some people will because they'll need a job, and they obviously have Skeens and some really exciting pitching prospects coming up. But even if the Pittsburgh Pirates sold out every game, they're not going to match a market like Los Angeles. They're not going to match a market like New York, because it's just a smaller metropolitan area, right? Like if a good Dodgers team is going to attract millions and millions and millions more eyes to their TV broadcasts than the Pirates can. And that's where, yes, some of the small market teams can, and I think should spend more on their payroll. But, if everybody maxed out, you'd still have a major disparity.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Pirates are really going to have a choice in the next few years, because I think actually I read the number one prospect is a Pittsburgh hitter.
Yeah.
They're going to have either the best or the second best pitcher in baseball, plus they're one of the best hitters, and they're going to have to spend a little money, because otherwise they can get to a point where the fans just give up in disgust.
If they haven't already. I mean, I think, and if you think back to when we were kids, those Pirates teams of the 70s, and like they went to the World Series in 79, and the Willie Stargells and the Dave Parker teams. When Pittsburgh wins, and when Pittsburgh cares, and when Pittsburgh has a team, those fans turn out and are rabid, and
Mhm.
it's a shame to take a fan base like that and not give them what they deserve. I think Cleveland's the same way, although Cleveland does a much, much better job, um, given their market size, of development. They're really good at
Mhm.
that. They're really good at that, which is nice to see. But then you have teams like the Marlins, which, it's obviously different ownership at this point, but they've just gone in cycles of we don't care,
Right.
and they'll go for it, and then they dismantle, and that's not fair to a fan base at all.
Yeah. So I think in the Marlins case, I think maybe the fan base may not really be there. I mean, that seems to be,
Well,
and so.
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true. They say that, like, there's a lot of things you can do in Miami that don't require you to go to a baseball game,
Mhm.
but that's true of New York, and that's
Mhm.
true of LA. And we went to games in the '80s where you could walk up, in the early '80s, you could
Yeah.
walk up to the stadium day of and buy a field level
Right.
box seat, an hour before the first pitch.
Right.
By the end of the '80s, you couldn't get a ticket at all.
Right.
So win and you put fannies in the seats. It's just that simple. It really is just that simple. I mean, maybe Miami doesn't have quite as avid a fan base as New York would, or Chicago's notoriously, um, uh, rabid fan base. But if you don't try to win and win consistently, like, well, what can you expect from the people who are shelling out the money for it?
Gets back to they were talking about how fans have this deep connection to Alonso or to other players who have been there and might could conceivably have spent their entire career with the Mets. And
Sure.
what is more important? It's important to have that connection, but winning is also important. And you don't want to have a band of mercenaries who are only there for 1 year, but you want to get the right players.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you.
Yeah.
In fact, is like, where do you stand on that spectrum in terms of, like, I want to root for the guys I want to root for,
Hmm.
or damn it, win at all costs?
Yeah.
Because I sort of thread that needle a little, but I'm curious where you stand on all that.
When you read about the money that they offered Tucker, you sort of wonder, couldn't they have just given 5 years to Alonso, and how would that work? I mean, for the next 2 years, it would have been a wash probably. There is something to be said for having a player who's there his entire career, and that doesn't happen much anymore.
It doesn't happen a
No.
lot. I mean, to me, I've been a baseball fan since I was a little boy. I come through it through maternal bloodlines, and so there's a romanticism for me that I still, even at my ripe old age, don't let go of. And I love homegrowns.
Mhm.
I love Mike Piazza, but in a weird way, when they were on the same team, I liked Hundley more, right? Because he
Mhm.
was a homegrown. So, um, but I also want to win. I think, and God will strike me dead for saying this, but I think that '90s Yankees squad was really kind of the ideal, where you had a lot of really good homegrown players who came in, and you augmented them
Mhm.
with people from the outside and brought in real stars. And that to me, because that Yankee core of Bernie Williams and Derek Jeter really allowed Yankee fans to call that team their own. And then you bring in, the external, superstars, and they just sort of get folded into that. I know the Mets kind of tried to do that in the '80s and into the '90s, where they had this core, and they kept bringing in the Frankie Sweet Music Violas and things of that sort, and that never really quite panned out, not the
Yeah.
way it did for the Yankees in the
Yeah.
'90s.
So it's even like Santana, who got the Mets' first no hitter, but still was injured a lot of the time. So it's like you took a chance and you got something out of it, but it didn't
Right.
quite pan out the way you wanted it to.
And that's kind of the risk of
Yeah.
taking on pitchers who are more seasoned. I mean, Pedro was so much fun to watch,
Yeah.
but he broke down a lot
Yeah.
too. So that
Excellent.
was like, I mean, he was not Red Sox Pedro when he came to the
Hmm.
Mets, although he certainly showed flashes of it. Um, I was reading on a blog where somebody was sort of bashing the love that Mets fans had for Wilmer Flores, because they were saying, well, he was never really that good a Met. And that's true number wise. We certainly have had many, many better players than Wilmer Flores. But when a guy who was drafted internationally at 16 and has played his whole career with the Mets, and he sobs on the field when he thinks he's
Hmm.
going to get traded, and then wins a game with a home run, like, what, 1 or 2 days later. I mean, if you can't if you can't attach to that emotionally, then fan the way you want to fan, but we're fans on
Mhm.
different levels because that to me, and it was a magical season too, even though they lost to the Royals.
Mm.
But that to me is what I talked about earlier, the romanticism of
Mhm.
baseball is all about. Like guys caring so much that they're going to cry when they think they're getting
Mhm.
traded. I mean, I don't know. That's storybook stuff that I love.
No, I mean, you need stories like that. I mean, also because baseball season is much longer than a lot of other pro sports. I mean, so you want stories that will carry you through the months. And, there'll be times when the team is playing well, times they're not playing as well, but you need players that really grab you.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's I was thinking about this, how a season is 162 games. Has a real arc of a narrative. Like I think
Mhm.
every season, if you're a true storyteller, you can break down what a season is in a narrative.
Mhm.
And what's kind of exciting is the narrative at the beginning in April, May, even into June, isn't always what the narrative ends up being. And there's two seasons I think of quite distinctly. One was 2015, which we were
Mhm.
just talking about, where they were a good but not great team. Um, and battling with the Nationals at that point. And when they got Cespedes, I mean, do you ever remember a Met putting a team on its back the way Cespedes did? That
No.
was insane. And that became, and I don't think anybody expected that the 2015 team was good enough to go to the World Series, but like, the Flores carrying so much that he cries and Cespedes coming in and like saying, come on, boys, this is the way we're going to do it. The whole narrative of that season, the whole arc of that season changed at the trading deadline because of those two moments.
Mhm.
And I think of 2024 too. They were a middling, frustratingly um, mediocre team. They brought up Iglesias, who really had no business hitting what he hit and all that, but he introduced the OMG
Yeah.
Mets and then the Grimace Mets, which is
That's it.
obviously silly, but it became the narrative. And I just think that when you have those arcs, that to me is what loving baseball is all about and
Mhm.
what following a team for a season is all about.
No, I agree. There, there are moments, there are things where seasons can change, and I mean, like in 2015, for some reason, I watched um, Harvey, arguing to go back in for the ninth inning,
Yeah.
and you just think, well, what if that had worked?
Yeah, no, right, right.
you
That's
know, that would have been like a moment that would have gone down in history forever, and
right,
instead, it's now.
right. I mean, it's not, it's not, you know, um, Bernard Malamud did not write the end of that season, but yes, I mean, everybody. That's if that had worked, everybody would be talking about that
Mhm.
for years and years and years to come. That's so true. That is so true. And that's what you want to see from your players too. A
Yeah,
guy who's like, "No,
don't
you're
take
not taking me
me
out."
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is my game, and
yeah,
I'm going to take you home.
yeah. And you know, I would not. I would not think you would in those days win a lot of money betting against Harvey.
Mhm.
So I think that's I mean, storybook aside, that's a risk you take anyway. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
How do you think this season is going to go based on?
Well, it's interesting because like we were saying earlier, I feel better that a plan was
Mhm.
executed, and again, we don't know, whether this was plan A, B, or C for Stearns. We know that he was trying to get rid of people. We
Mhm.
know that he wanted a change, that the same old players were not getting it done, and I respect that. But I have to say, the guys they brought in, I know so little about. I know nothing about Polanco at all. I mean, I've
Mhm.
read about him since, but like, obviously, I knew Bichette was a really good player with the Blue Jays, but there are all these American League guys they brought in.
Yeah.
Even with interleague play, I don't follow the American League nearly as much as I do the National League. So um, I'm glad we have capable bodies at every position.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know that much about these
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about how they're all like really good clubhouse and good
Yes,
personality wise,
yes,
and really want to good team building people, which is great. And there may have been more trouble in the clubhouse than we thought over the last year or two, and it's still going to be Lindor and Soto's team,
sure.
but all these, maybe this is really, these people are really going to come together and maybe be a more cohesive core than before.
Yeah, I mean, Semyon comes with a tremendous reputation
Yeah.
and like the grown up in the room
Yeah.
and all of that. I mean, it's easy. I mean, think about, you know, what Soto's 27. Think about what you were like at 27. Like, I mean, I was a schmuck.
Yeah.
So it's hard for these guys to like, you know, to show, you know, mature leadership that
Mhm.
comes with wisdom, and wisdom comes with age, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I think the clubhouse guys, I think the club, it's hard for me just knowing the personalities of Nemo and Alonzo to imagine them being clubhouse cancers, but you
Yeah.
never know. I mean, people put one face on here and another there.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say is I truly believe two things. One, chemistry can be very fleeting, right? So I remember a lot of people, a lot of friends of mine were beside themselves that we didn't bring Iglesias back because he was heart and soul of the
Mhm.
2014. But would he be again? And you can't keep going back to OMG. You can't
Right.
keep going back to Grimace. I think it goes back to the season narrative. Each team is different. Each season is different. But I also believe that winning papers over a lot of clubhouse tension, right?
Yeah.
I think if there were clubhouse problems last year, it was probably because they weren't playing that well. And then it becomes like a snowball effect.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, those Dodger teams from the 70s, apparently, the infield, which was, you know, well regarded with Say at third and Garvey at first and Russell and Lopes in the middle. Apparently they didn't get along that great, but they played great.
Yeah.
So
It's like,
who cares, right?
exactly.
So we'll see.
You know, the professionals.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's at some point you have to. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to step up and be a professional. You do. You have to get the job done. Easy for us to say who don't have to, you know, spend all that much time with our coworkers. Be nice if we had coworkers at
Yeah.
this point, but you do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's part of the job, and it's
Mhm.
part of why you get paid millions and millions of dollars to play a game, right?
Right.
So yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do
Yeah.
you think it's going to go?
I think it's really going to come down to the pitching. I mean, I think the hitting more or less will take care of it. I'm sure there'll be, you know, some players will take a little longer to get adjusted, and you know, you'll be saying, "Oh my God, Bichette's hitting 250, and you know, why we get rid of Alonso?" But I'm sure like he's going to come around, you know, by the end of the year. But I think it's the pitching, and you know, they just have to go longer than 5 innings.
They
We're,
do.
we're not even asking for 8 or 9. I mean, you
They do.
just like there's no way because they go 4 or 5 innings and the bullpen just gets worn out.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I don't know if this is a topic we want to dive
Yeah,
into deeply here, but
yeah,
the whole one of the things that drives me nuts right now about the modern game is pitchers are asked to go less deep than ever,
hmm
right? 6 innings, you're done. But every front office will also acknowledge that the most fungible part of the game and the most unpredictable part of your roster is your bullpen. And yet, even knowing that, they're relying more and more on the bullpen. It's I in a time and an era where stats and data is everything, why we keep leaning in to the most, you know, the most difficult part to predict. I never will understand
yeah.
that. I think I would rather see a pitcher dial it back a little bit and go 6, 7 innings than to be all out for 5. Because I think you hand off you know, what good is a 3-run lead if you hand it off to a leaky pen?
hmm
It's not that valuable. So
But I think it does go back to it's everything is data now, and you know, and data supposedly is showing that you got to go all out for as long as you can, and then, you know, that I think there's a whole thing to be said there. You know, not that, you know, pre Moneyball when you're just relying on scouts intuition and nothing else, that was, you know, necessarily the way to go, but there
yeah,
has to be a way to merge the two
I
and
agree.
not totally be a slave to the data.
We also have to remember that humans are not data,
Yeah.
right? Like you know, professional athletes at that level have not only God-given ability, but they usually have a kind of drive that is, you know, almost superhuman too. You just don't get to the apex by just being good, right?
hmm
But that being said, and it goes back to the argument about who can play in New York and who can't, which I think is overblown but not non-existent. That these are human beings, right?
hmm
So like they do feel pressure and they do read newspaper articles and they do listen to what when the fans boo and things of that sort. And they're not unemotional beings out there.
hmm
And so data can't tell the whole story. It really can't. There's
Yeah.
a lot to being a human being that has much more to do with the weird
You're
stuff that
just-
goes on in your brain and in your heart than comes out on a spreadsheet.
No, I think it's definitely true, and it's you know, it's just how people can have a bad day, and it can be for any number of reasons,
Sure.
and you don't want to get into a spot where a thing gets spiraling, and um, data is very useful, and you learn about the pitchers or the hitters that you're going to face, but there has to be something that just be about that you are executing what you want to do, and you know your own talents, I mean, more than anybody else.
Yeah. And also, if the data shows you really should throw your slider here,
Mhm.
but the last slider you threw got hit 435 feet, you might lack confidence in that slider, whatever the data might
Yeah,
say. And if you don't have the confidence in that pitch, you're not going to throw the best pitch.
right,
So, you know,
exactly. All right.
good discussion.
Good, very good discussion.
I like it. But
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
go, I just want to give a little acknowledgement about where we are. We're in your childhood home, and this was a place where your dad worked, and your dad
Mhm.
is was a longtime critic with the New York Times.
Mhm.
Um, Probably wrote a lot of words that inspired people, maybe some that pissed people off as well. My dad was a longtime television producer. We both come from a legacy media background,
Mhm.
and podcasts are a new wave of things, and but I think we both have in our blood this need to communicate and this need to uh dig deep into what the story is, and I'm thrilled that we are sitting next to each other and doing this together,
Good talking with you.
as with you.